You have watched it happen in real time. Someone makes a mistake that would have followed you for months. A missed deadline, a client complaint, a number that came in wrong on a report that went upstairs and nothing happened to them. No meeting with HR. No formal conversation about accountability. The manager shrugged. The week moved on. You sat there doing the math on every consequence you had absorbed for smaller errors and could not make the numbers balance. That is not inconsistency. That is the inner circle working exactly as designed. Every team has one. You already know who it is. You have known for a long time, the person whose ideas never get questioned before the room has considered them, the person whose bad quarter gets framed as a learning moment while yours gets documented, the person your manager mentions by name when speaking to senior leadership, not because they perform better, because they are inside something you are outside of. And the distance between those two positions has nothing to do with your output. Look at what the distance has already cost you. You started over-documenting your work. Not because you were disorganized, but because you noticed that credit moved around this team in ways that had nothing to do with who did the work. You stopped sharing ideas in early stages because you watched the pattern. An idea floated casually, absorbed quietly, reappeared, attributed to someone else. You have become careful in meetings where you used to be direct, not because your thinking changed, because you learned that being right in the wrong direction costs more than it returns. That contraction is not professional development. That is the rational adaptation to an environment where the rules apply to some people and not to others. You read the environment correctly. The environment is the problem. Here's what the inner circle actually is. It is not a conspiracy. It is a proximity structure. The people inside it did not earn entry through performance. They earned it through availability, compatibility, and what can only be called social mirroring. The ability to reflect back to a person in power a version of themselves they find reassuring. The boss's favorite is not usually the most competent person, they are the most legible person. They think in terms the boss recognizes. They deliver information in a register the boss finds comfortable. They do not challenge the boss's instincts in ways the boss finds threatening. This is not calculated flattery. It is something quieter and more durable than that. It is genuine alignment with how the person above them sees the world. And that alignment is worth more inside this organization than almost anything you could produce. The boss does not protect this person because they have evaluated the evidence. The boss protects this person because the person is inside their social perimeter. And protecting people inside your social perimeter is not a conscious decision. It is automatic. It is the same mechanism that makes someone defend their friend before they know the full story. Inside organizations, it runs on the same wiring, just wearing performance vocabulary. Watch how information moves in your team, not official information, the information that matters. Who hears about the restructuring before the announcement? Who learns the budget number before it becomes relevant to their proposal? Who finds out about the open senior role before it is posted? The inner circle is not defined by title. It is defined by information timing. The person who always seems to know things slightly before you is not better networked. They are closer to the source, and proximity to the source was never distributed on merit. The people outside the circle almost always respond the same way. They work harder. They produce more. They optimize the one variable they can control, output, in the belief that eventually the work will become undeniable. That if they build an airtight enough case through performance, the protection will arrive. It does not. Not because the work is not good, because output is not what generates protection inside the system. Relationship is what generates protection. And relationship is not built through better quarterly numbers. Here's the structural mechanism underneath all of it. A manager does not protect their favorite because the favorite is valuable. A manager protects their favorite because the favorite makes the manager's job easier to do emotionally. The favorite does not create friction. They do not surface problems the manager is not ready to solve. They absorb the manager's perspective and hand it back in a way that feels like consensus. Managing them requires less energy, and in an environment where every manager is also being managed, energy conservation is not trivial. It is survival. The person who challenges the process, who names the gap between what is stated and what's practiced, who delivers honest assessments that complicate the manager's narrative upward, that person is not disloyal. They are just expensive to manage, and expensive gets managed differently than easy. Not with hostility. With distance, the feedback goes more formal. The tone becomes more careful. The information starts arriving slightly later than it used to. Nobody says anything. The distance just grows. You were not paranoid when you noticed. You were accurate. The inner circle also functions as a protection system against accountability. When something goes wrong inside an organization, the first question is never what happened. The first question is whose name is on it. And that question is answered before any investigation starts through the same proximity logic. The person inside the circle is insulated by the relationship. The person outside the circle is exposed by the distance. Two people make the same error. One absorbs a consequence, one absorbs a conversation. The difference is not what they did, it is where they stand. This is why the inner circle member can survive things that would end someone else's position. Not because they are protected by a deliberate intervention, because the person with authority to act does not feel the same urgency to act when the error belongs to someone they trust. Trust insulates, distance exposes, and neither of those things was assigned based on your performance review. The people who get promoted from inside the circle are not promoted because they were inside the circle. They are promoted because the decision maker already trusts them. Promotion is a risk calculation. The risk calculator is a human being with preferences they cannot fully see. Choosing someone familiar lowers the perceived risk. Choosing someone whose results are strong but whose manner is not yet known raises it. The circle reduces the friction on the decision. The meritocracy language gets written in afterward. You cannot force your way into an inner circle through output. That is the wrong entry point. The entry point is relational, consistent access, low-stakes interaction, shared context over time. Not performance, presence, the kind of presence that accumulates without agenda in the spaces around the work, the informal conversation before the meeting starts. The follow-up that is not about a deliverable, the response to something personal that costs you nothing and lands as genuinely human. These are the interactions that build the thing no spreadsheet captures. You are not failing the system, you are succeeding at a version of it that does not determine the outcome. The system you were told to optimize for, effort, output, quality, is real. It keeps you employed. It builds your reputation over time in ways that travel outside this organization. But it is not the system that moves you up inside this one. And conflating those two systems is where most people lose years they cannot recover. The person your manager protects is not better than you. They are closer than you. Those two things have never been the same.